All right, guys, we want to hit you with one of the most overlooked aspects that can create huge benefits for your fitness training, which is the use of diagonal patterns. So diagonal patterns are innate to how we move. It doesn't matter if we're walking or running, lifting something off the ground, or creating power like punching, throwing, and kicking. We use these diagonal chains all the time. In fact, the way that we're connected is from our foot, from our hip, to our core, to our opposite side of our upper body. So a great way we actually illustrate that is through a concept known as lift and chops, which are derived from the PNF concept developed back in the 1940s by neurophysical therapists to show that when we create this proximal stability through diagonal patterns, we improve function and performance much faster. Now, oftentimes you'll see people try to mimic what we do in our diagonal pattern work with other tools like a dumbbell. They'll do, hey Josh, can I do a lift and chop that like you guys show with a dumbbell? No. And we're going to go over why, because neither one of these are great ways of doing lift and chops or using diagonal patterns. So one of the reasons that we use our ultimate sandbag is that we can create tension, and the dimension are very, very important. So when we take our core USB here and Jessica grabs on the bag itself and pulls it apart, you just saw her shoulder set. Her lats became engaged. Your lats are huge core stabilizers. Her hand is connected, again, with grip to her shoulder, to her lats, to her core. In this position, we get much more benefit for what we're doing. She's going to drive into her feet and she's going to go into that diagonal pattern. But she's not just pulling apart as she comes up, she's also pulling the weight apart as she's coming down. That's not possible if I'm using a dumbbell, a kettlebell, a medicine ball, or anything like that. My hands are too close and they're not pliable, and oftentimes people are pushing in. But it's not just the idea of just trying to lift up with her arms. She's pushing down through the ground and trying to pull apart into that diagonal pattern and then pull it back as she's driving down. Now, we can use this lift and chop pattern. We'll show you guys a couple different ways. But again, understanding why it's so essential to unlocking stability, mobility, and performance is what this is all about. Now that lift and chop you saw is awesome for shoulder stability, hip mobility, and core stability all at the same time, but it's not the only way we can do this. So Jessica in a moment is going to get in our front load position. So in a lift and chop, as you just saw, there's a long lever arm to the body, which makes it harder to lift more weight. But if we bring the weight close to our body, we can still do the same thing. What Jessica's going to do is she's going to create some thoracic rotation while resisting lumbar movement. So she's going to clean the weight up, and she's creating that tension. So she's getting that plank that we want. She's going to take a modest step back. So we're going to introduce, again, some instability to the lower body. She's going to hinge, and she's going to just do slight thoracic rotation. And what she does is she's breaking the bag apart, and that is helping her core prevent over-rotation of that thoracic spine. Most people, when they try to do drills where they disassociate the thoracic spine from the lumbar spine, they create way too much rotation and get most of it actually through the lumbar spine. And what we want to do is teach how to create a stable lumbar spine while creating thoracic mobility, which is much higher level stability and strength training. So a lot of people know of our max or multiple axis lunge. It can be used for other drills too, like hip hinges, but most popularly is used for lunging. But again, we can do so many different things with it. What people don't understand though is inherently lift and chop. So let's have Jessica do a couple reps so you guys can see it in action. She's going to pull the handles apart. She's going to be active with her feet. She's nice and tall. Her arms are as straight as possible, and she creates that movement back and forth. The more power she creates, the more of the lift and chop that we start to see. Nice job, Jess. Now, most people have a hard time with the deceleration coming down. That's why we always recommend people start nice and slow back and forth. But you can see those diagonal patterns come out. So even if she moves it back and forth real slow, let's go real slow, Jess. We're still getting the diagonal patterns. We're still getting that shoulder, core, and hip working at the same time, which is what makes it such a powerful exercise, not just for the lower body, but the core and even the shoulders and upper body as well. So you can see these diagonal patterns can be used in many different ways, from very much corrective exercise to high performance, explosive movements. But the key is to understand what you're trying to accomplish with them and what the impact will be for your overall training.